Hey everyone, Tony D with a hot take on, well, this is a hot take about something that's going on in the internet about the She-Hulk writer. I believe her name is Dana Schwartz, if I'm getting that right, I think. So she went on a bit of a Twitter rant about South Park and how it damaged the culture. And it's gone viral, and she's getting pretty blasted for it. It was incredibly arrogant post. I'm sure you could find it if you Google it. Jeremy over at The Quartering has a really good video on it. But the sad thing is, you know, as I was doing my half-assed research into Dana and what her deal is, I was trying to figure out if she wrote the comic or if she is working on the TV series. And I think it's kind of both. I did read about the head writer, though, of the new She-Hulk series. And she actually is the writer for, or was one of the writers on Rick and Morty. She wrote the Pickle Rick episode and won an Emmy for it. She also worked on Silicon Valley, and and she's got a she's got an ABC pilot called Lazy Rich Asians. So I could see that if her name's Jessica Gao, and I could see if Jessica is the head writer of the She-Hulk show, and she gets to pull all the strings, that show's going to be amazing. That show's going to be awesome. However, this Dana Schwartz, Jesus, just Jeremy had a clip of her on The Quartering talking about her book, and I wanted to go to sleep. I mean, she was just so full of herself, and in my opinion, and the post was just this sort of arrogant feminist thing, and then of course they went back into her Twitter profile and found all these nasty things she said about white men, and how, you know, how she so loves to trigger white men and all this other nonsense. And I just thought to myself, you know, here's someone, she's fortunate enough to be working in LA, writing comics, probably going to end up working on the TV show too. And she's got to attack South Park, of all things, has nothing to do with her. Like, why are you jealous of South Park? South Park's been one of the greatest shows ever produced. It's one of the few shows that was amazing to begin with and actually got better. I mean, South Park's, if you haven't seen South Park in a few years, oh, you are missing out. You got to see it. It's friggin' phenomenal. And they went up against the Chinese Communist government all by themselves. No problem. F them. I love South Park. And for her to attack it this way, it was just so lame and wrong and stupid. And it's a shame, too, because after reading about Jessica Gao, I kind of want to get a copy of She-Hulk, because Jessica sounds amazing. But after reading what Dana had to say, Dana sounds like a cat lady. And I do not want to read stuff by a cat lady. So I am torn. I certainly am not getting Disney Plus. I can't give Disney that kind of money. Perhaps I will find a way to see things anyway. But until that time, you know, I got to say, you know, don't harass Dana Schwartz or anybody on the internet, please. Certainly don't involve me. And, you know, I don't condone that kind of behavior. I don't like to see people harassed. But you know, I would, you know, after reading about Jessica Gao, I was so excited. And then after reading about Dana, I was just like, ugh. Jessica actually made me excited to think about reading a comic again. Because after I read that she wrote the Pickle Rick episode, I'm like, well, she's probably awesome. I mean, that Pickle Rick episode was totally on the mark. I mean, it was really good. And it had Susan Sarandon did a voice on it, if you don't know. So Anyhow, that's all I have to say about that. I don't know why people go on Twitter. I really don't. You know, if I was fortunate enough to be working at Marvel Comics right now, I would certainly stay off Twitter. You know, as Tim Pool points out in his videos, only about 2% of the country, 2% of the United States uses Twitter. It's a very tiny percentage of the overall population. And it really shows you the bubble that Twitter is in. I mean, you're talking 2% of the population after Twitter basically curated the people on it. Although I think, you know, with the impending election and everything so polarized, I do think conservatives are making quite a comeback on Twitter. I've been on it a lot recently, trying to promote. James Woods is back. If you haven't been on Twitter in a while, James Woods had a huge following on Twitter, and he got into a fight with him, kind of left, and he's sort of been kind of fighting with them a little bit, in that, you know, he posts stuff and once in a while Twitter makes him take it down. So he's kind of back. But I don't understand these people who tweet these things and start fights. I mean, you know, I mix it up on Twitter a little bit, but, you know, I try not to get too personal. And it depends on who it is, right? You know, if you got someone who is a politician, that's different. Politicians, that's part of their job to take criticism. They're part of the public, and the public can do that. Celebrities, not much. I mean, you shouldn't get too personal, but certainly they're open to criticism. I try to be constructive in criticism, or funny. You know, I try to be funny and flip on Twitter, or constructive in criticism if it's an actual criticism. But, you know, if it's a nobody, I mean, really. And when you're talking about South Park, I mean, you Google the tweet if you want. I mean, it's such an arrogant tweet, like this woman, who's very young, by the way, far too young to be making these pronouncements. And, you know, she doesn't have any kind of, it's not like she has a PhD. It's not like she's some sort of expert. You know, at least if she was that, you could say, well, she's an expert and this is her opinion after she's done some research. No, I mean, she's a writer and has written some comic books, and, you know, a comic book starring a giant green woman with a giant huge green rack. So obviously she should know things. I don't get people. Anyhow, the motto is stay off of Twitter. Just stay off of Twitter. It's a terrible, horrible hellscape.